Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change episode this week with Kathryn Tancos. Hi, Kathryn. Welcome back.
Hi. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Vasco.
Absolutely. So, Kathryn, on Wednesdays, we dive into change because, after all, we are all diving in some change lake or ocean, hopefully not too stormy, but sometimes it is. And we do this, of course, because we want to learn the tips, the tricks, the tools, the techniques that you have collected over time that you apply in the change processes that you are involved with these days. So tell us the story of one of those change processes, what went on, like the steps that change process went through, and also those things you learned, the things you carry with you for future change processes.
So this is a story where an organization was going through an Agile transformation. I've been through several of these transformations at this point in my career, so they may all sound very similar, but that's because they all have similar problems. So this particular organization ended up bringing in a consultancy to help them with the Agile transformation. And the interesting thing here is that there were two consultants that were assigned to bring the entire organization of dozens and dozens of teams. I think there were about 600 employees within the organization, and bring the entire organization through this Agile transformation. Problem is, two people don't scale over an organization that large. So what ended up happening was that these two individuals were focusing all their time on the teams that pretty much impacted revenue the most. So the teams that were putting out the shiny new objects, the teams that were focusing on delivering new features for existing products that would delight the end users, that's where these teams were spending, or these individuals were spending their time. I was on the teams on the mobile side where we didn't have the luxury of having those coaches walk us through this journey. So it was something that I had to lead. The biggest mistake that I saw from day one, we were a project management organization. When the organization started emphasizing adopting Agile and becoming more Scrum-like, they automatically just assumed, well, a project manager can be a Scrum Master too. So now you're all Scrum Masters. I was the only one within the organization that I was actually a certified Scrum Master and have had experience in this area. So that was number one. Organizations believe during transformations that project managers, program managers, and Scrum Masters are interchangeable. And they're not. They actually each bring a specific subset of skills to the table that doesn't necessarily make them great at one or the other. So I've seen this multiple times too in organizations where they do that, where project managers, you're now Scrum Masters, but we're not going to provide any training either.
Or support, right? Because the coaches are too busy over there.
Exactly. So in this case, what I did is I just scheduled a lot of time with these coaches myself. And I worked with the teams that were getting the coaching so I could just grab all that knowledge and all the great tools and techniques that they were using and pull them into my team and be able to execute them within my own teams. So that was one interesting aspect of that transformation. Eventually, it led to, well, all you project managers who are now Scrum Masters, we actually need you to be delivery managers. So that role just kept evolving over time, which was interesting. But at the end of the day, we really were Scrum Masters. We were there to guide the teams and help the teams throughout this transition and to become a more self-organized organization.
So when working in this kind of transformations, the either external consultancy or even internal people who assume the responsibility in the agile transformation, it very often is so that they don't scale. And you very well illustrated that point when you talked about two consultants in an organization with many teams. So obviously they can't serve all of them. And because this is a normal situation, I mean, there aren't that many very experienced agile transformation people out there anyway, while the whole industry is trying to move towards agile. So we need to kind of learn to live with this. And if you look back from your own experience, what you saw happening and what you saw happening after and even before that story, what would you change? Like, how would you change this type of agile transformation so that you would still benefit from the few people that come in, like these two agile coaches, but you would also create the supporting structure for the rest of the organization?
The first thing that I would have changed is finding out from leadership the why. Why did you want us to become an agile organization? What problems did you see that you thought agile could solve? Again, it was you're doing this transformation, everyone, but there was no context. And it's very hard for a team or anyone to buy into new processes when they don't know the context, the vision, or the goals. It was just presented as, well, Agile works everywhere else, so it should work here. But we didn't stop and ask the hard questions. So that would have been the first thing that I would have done from the outset is question leadership on why did you want us to do this and what were we there to solve? What did you believe Agile could solve for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the why allows us to scale adaptability, right? Because if we know why we're doing something, we can, set up measurements or whatever and allow teams to slowly start moving in that direction. Also with self-feedback, because, and also that's the most powerful, right? We try to do something, we see if it has an impact on what we are trying to achieve. And if not, then we adapt.
Yes. And it's interesting that you brought up the measurements because I've asked a few times going into organizations that are undergoing an agile transformation. The question is, what does success look like to you and how do we measure it? And I kind of get looked at with blank stares. The expectation I feel is that agile magically cures all problems within an organization.
You mean it doesn't?
I know. Isn't that crazy? So it is imperative that leadership is very clear on what they want to measure and how to measure and what success looks like, because that is actually the last thing that I see considered amongst leadership and organizations.
And we can start doing that as Scrum Masters, even within the small context of our team, right? Like we can have that conversation. Even if we don't know all of the whys out there, we can definitely start somewhere with the team and kind of create that self-evaluation framework, if you will.
Yes, exactly. And that's what makes retrospective so important is that you can start driving those conversations there. It's not relegated to just retro. You can have those conversations anytime. But it really is important for the team to identify their own values as well. Because, my values may not be aligned with your values. So for the team to come up with their own set of agreed upon values, and what success looks like to them, then we can adapt the metrics based on aligning with the team.
And I really like the fact that you brought up the idea of values and having that conversation, because at the end of the day, agile transformations have implicitly a change in what we value, right? And to ask that question from the team, like, okay, we didn't do agile before, we're supposed to do agile now. What does that mean for us? What do we now value? What are our values as an agile team? And then it's no longer about the process. It's about what we see as success and also what we see as the ideal set of behaviors.
Yes, that is true. And that's one other issue that I see all the time in organizations is the process becomes the goal. But really, the process is there to support the team. The team should not be supporting the process. The team shouldn't be the ones that are making the process work for them by gaming the system. I see this all the time with estimation. One good example is that velocity and throughput, they're looked at as performance measurements for the team. Oh, well, if the velocity is lower, then the team isn't working and they're just sitting around eating chips on the couch and watching TV rather than coding, which is the furthest thing from the truth. So that's where we get into a lot of issues, is that the process becomes the main focal point instead of collaboration, teamwork, and putting awesome products out to our end users.
Absolutely. I loved how you put it. The process is there to support the team, not the team to support the process. That was beautifully said. Thank you for that, Kathryn.
Sure.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role, we'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.